And welcome back to Stories from Sector 10. This is WellArmedWithTacos, and we're actually going to have a 40k discussion instead of a 40k story. I wish I had more of these. It was always the intent of this podcast to be more than just retelling of the games, but unfortunately with my schedule as it is, it takes a lot to have something that makes me actually want to talk about, like in its own thing. I think the last time I did this was with the release of 8th edition. It takes something to either, like, it has to be significant or it has to grind my gears to get me to talk about it like this. And in this instance, it's a case of it grinds my gears. So what are we here to talk about? Well, I'm sure it will be in the title, or if it's not in the title, I'll come up with a coy pun for it or something like that. But we are here to talk about Deathwatch. The 8th edition Deathwatch Codex has just dropped. It dropped over this past weekend. I have seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't fully read the book front to back. I don't own the book. I just know one or two people who do. And what's in the book doesn't even necessarily matter, because it's what already got leaked a week ago with the stratagems on the Games Workshop webpage that really matters for the purpose of this discussion. Basically, what I want to say is, as someone who plays 40k, I will actively be choosing not to play against any Deathwatch players. And that is a period to that statement. If anybody plays Deathwatch against me, I will simply scoop and then go play something else. I won't waste their time any further than it's already been wasted by having them playing their stuff. But if anything, they're just wasting mine, because I've been very public about the fact that I'm not playing against Deathwatch. I hate to do this because it does make me feel a little guilty, but there was a player who was going to buy Deathwatch and specifically chose not to buy Deathwatch because he knew I wouldn't play. And such as it is, finding players in this area can be hard enough. So he didn't want to close that door. He's like, I'm one of the most consistent players in the store. That's true. So if I'm not playing against you, he didn't want to do that. And that makes me feel a little bad, but I'm sticking to my guns on this one. And I don't know how long it's going to take me to rant about this, but this will probably be a short video. But here's why. Here's why I know I won't play against Deathwatch. Since their incarnation as a playable army back in 7th edition, obviously that with lore they go back even further. But since their creation as a playable army, and technically since the creation of their lore, the gimmick of the Deathwatch have always been that they hunt Xenos. They're supposed to be Warhammer 40k's foremost Xenos hunting army of mankind. They're supposed to be the one that hunt the aliens. The other side of this would be Grey Knights, who are specifically designed to hunt demons, or Chaos in general. And if I played Chaos, especially demons, I'm sure I would feel the same way about Grey Knights, and I would choose not to play against Grey Knights. For the same reasons, I, as a player, am choosing not to play against Deathwatch. I play 5 armies for 40k. Technically, I only play 4, because I'm never going to touch my Space Marines anymore until I can figure out a way to play a codex that doesn't involve Primaris. So basically when I go full Chaos. But I'm not playing Space Marines, so that leaves me with 4 armies. All 4 of the armies I play, reliably, are Xenos. Orcs, Gene Seed Occults, Tau, and Necrons. I am a Xenos player. And to play against Deathwatch, who are so acclimated to play against Xenos, does not appeal to me in terms of a fun, balanced game. Deathwatch are specifically attuned to fight against Xenos armies. They have distinct advantages that make them stronger when playing against the Xenos army. And here's where we get into the stratagems. And I want to preface their argument about the stratagems by saying, I have not played against Deathwatch, nor am I going to, but I have not played against them. I am in no way, shape, or form claiming the Deathwatch Codex is OP against any of the Xenos armies. I'm not trying to say that. If there are Deathwatch players out there or any other players of any faction trying to say, well, just because they're attuned to fight your army, that doesn't mean they're going to win. You can still beat them because they have this, blah, 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 they're expensive, whatever. I am not trying to say Deathwatch are overpowered against Xenos players. That is not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is, I don't play 40k competitively. I play 40k strictly for fun and enjoyment. And the stratagems are what completely make me not want to play against Deathwatch. I'm going to start with the one that matters to me the most. Necrons. Actually, before I start there, I should be a little bit more broad. The Deathwatch have a unique stratagem. A stratagem is an ability that they can use for a minor point cost. An ability that they can use that has an effect. And they have one of these for every Xenos army, with the exception of Genes to the Cults, which is a little weird, but makes me fear as a Genes to the Cult player, because they might be hinting at not giving us another book, which would make me sad, but that's another discussion. So, they have a specific stratagem against Orcs, Necrons, Tyranids, and then one that specifically applies to all of the Eldar. Starting with the Necron one, because I think the Necron one is probably the best nutshell of the argument I'm trying to make. They have a Necron stratagem that says they spend 1 CP or 1 point, and any one unit that tries to reanimate within a certain inch of them, and that certain inch of them is completely irrelevant to this situation, because it is more than close enough than any typical Deathwatch player is going to choose to be. Deathwatch players like to get up close and personal. At least from when I fought them in 7th, their weapons were better attuned for getting close. They are more than capable of close quarters combat, especially against a Necron army who prefer to shoot. They're going to get close, so they're going to be in range to trigger this. They used a stratagem, and that unit has -1 to their reanimation protocol checks. Their reanimation protocols, which is the Necron's ability to get back up. Reanimation protocols is the thing that makes the Necron Codex unique. It's what makes it special. It's what makes Necrons do something different from everybody else. Typically, reanimation protocols is on a 5-up. 5 on a d6. Excuse me. With certain units like a Cryptek, you can increase that to a 4-up. But doing that is extremely unreliable. A Cryptek's bubble or range for that is only 3 inches. He's an HQ. You can't have that many of them. Point is, most of your army is going to be at a 5-up. You're going to have 1 or 2 units that are going to be at a 4 because of a nearby Cryptek, but most of your army is going to be at that 5-up. And it reduces it by 1, which is 6-ups. Now, this is the negative in me talking. I fully admit that. But to me, to remove the dive, or to remove it from a 5-up to a 6-up, I call it what I see it as. It's a cancellation. It's basically saying target unit can't reanimate this turn. Yes, it is technically on a 6-up. To me, if you need 6s, don't pick up the goddamn dice. Don't do it. I apologize for the language. I'm recording this right after the last one. I'm tired, and I tend to be a bit of a sailor. Don't pick up the dice if you need 6s. Don't pick them up. You're wasting your time. Just don't bother. So it's basically a cancellation. Now, again, let's fully say that's not game breaking, and the Necron army will still be fine. Why would I ever want to play my Necron army against an opponent who can actively nullify my ability? Literally nullify it. It's not like a situation where it's like, you're fighting against Dark Eldar who kill down whole units, and then you don't get to reanimate just because the opportunity is not there. This is literally target keyword Necron, remove reanimate, like hurt reanimation checks. It is literally against you. Why would I want to play against that? How is that fun? And I asked at the game store that I was at, and there were no Deathwatch players around when I asked. We only had like one, and he only stopped in to buy the book and then left like an hour later. But I even asked, like, if you're a Deathwatch player and you're listening to this, why do you enjoy playing Deathwatch? Why do you enjoy playing an army that gets significant advantages against Xenos, but not everyone else? And to that extent, I guess you include Grey Knights in that situation. Why do you enjoy playing Grey Knights? Because they have all this stuff that only affects against demons. That to me just doesn't sound fun. But I've always been a generalist. I build generous lists, and somebody locally said it, and I believe it's true. The Deathwatch Codex, regardless of how strong or weak it is pretty much, it encourages, like, it demands list tailoring. It encourages list tailoring of as much as possible, and list tailoring is a dirty, dirty word to me. So it's like, why would you want to play against that? So, me as a player, I've put a ban on Deathwatch. I'm not playing against them because I only get so many games in a week, and I would rather choose not to play, to go to a different table and play anything else, or even just play solitaire on my phone, than play against an army that I know I'm not going to enjoy playing against, because they're specifically attuned to fight me, because they take things away from me. The Orc stratagem. They have a stratagem where for every Orc they kill in Overwatch, it reduces the charge from the unit that declared the charge. That's very, very, very bad, considering Deathwatch units have access to a weapon called a frag launcher, which is basically an Overwatch beast. And they can have, like, I think 4 of these in a unit. So Orcs are not going to get a charge off. I spoke to another player who said simply charging with vehicles can nullify that, and that is true to an extent, but that's basically making the Orc player, I have to use these specific armies to play against you. You can't play a generalist boys horde army against Deathwatch now. It won't work. I don't think it will. I don't think so with that rule in place. I don't think they'll get many successful charges off. At least it doesn't look like that. But even if you like I said, if you want to charge the vehicles, you have to play that way. And based off my last story, I bought a Death Dread and a Battle Bucket. I didn't bring trucks. I didn't want to bring trucks. I shouldn't have to bring trucks if I don't want to bring trucks. I should have that luxury in life. But it doesn't sound like you're going to have that against Deathwatch. So the Tyranid one, in my opinion, is the weakest. It lets you target synapse creatures, but most synapse creatures are already over 10 wounds. I think the only synapse creatures it affects are the Broodlord and Tyranid Prime. And we have one Tyranid player, and the one Tyranid player is heavy on the monstrous creatures. He always has Hive Tyrants to be his synapse beacon, so it's like that doesn't even affect him. To me, the Tau Markalite one is also useless. They can spend a CP to get rid of all Markalite tokens on a unit. I also consider that useless, but that's only because I, as a Tau player, I don't go heavy into Markalites, never have. But I can understand that certain Tau players are probably pissed about that. Everyone else I've spoken to thinks the Tau is like the best one for Deathwatch, because they think taking away the Markalites will cripple Tau armies. Not from my playstyle, but for others, I suppose it's so. And the other one is also pretty good. They can shoot twice at flying vehicles. That's pretty good. So, before I end this, I want to talk a little bit about constructive criticism, because I can't sit here and complain about it without trying to say at least something like what I would fix it. Because yes, Deathwatch in their lore are supposed to be the Xenos Hunters. I don't want to take that away from them. I believe there is a way that Games Workshop could have done this and made it better. And I would still play against them. And I think it would make a lot of people, other than just me, happier as well. And it's the same thing I wish they had done to the Army-wide special rules that are in the codexes as well. It's a simple concept. Always do positives and never do a negative. If you provide the player with something that's positive and affects their army, everyone will be happier than if you give the player something that they inflict upon their opponent that makes their army weaker. What I mean by that, look at the Necron one. The Necron one is you target the Necron player and inflict a negative status upon the Necron player. If you look at the Eldar one is you play it on an Eldar player, but it does a positive upon the Deathwatch player when fighting that Eldar army. If all the stratagems had been like that, I wouldn't be complaining. Like as I said, positives are always better than negatives, and I know that very general statement, but I mean that in the terms of special rules, modifiers. Always do things that make your army better. Don't do things that make the opponent's army worse, because that makes, like, if you do something that's good for your army, you make one person happy and the other person doesn't care. If you do something the other way around, you make one person that doesn't care and one person angry, and that's not what you want. Some counter, like some examples of what they could have done for the other strategies. Play this stratagem when fighting against Necron armies, or with a Necron army. When shooting at Necrons, gain +1 to ballistic skill, or something like that, or gain like +1 to AP, or something like that, because Necrons are more heavily armored, or increase damage by 1. All that would have been fine. If playing against Orcs, do one that says, when Orcs charge, you Overwatch on 3 or on 4s instead of 6s. That would be fine. If it's positive stuff for the Deathwatch player, it doesn't piss off the Xenos player. I mean, it can if it's silly, like maybe the Overwatch one might be too much, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from on this one. And this has turned into a long rant, but always try to do positives with instead of the negatives when it comes to those special rules. And I said for the Army special rules, I said for the Army special rules earlier, and I meant that the Army special rules to be the same way. They have like the Tau have the Seps, Orcs have the clans, Cultists have the cults, Chaos Space Marines have legions, regular Space Marines have chapters. You know what I mean? Those army-wide special rules. It's always better to have something that says gain cover out in the open, other than like the -1 to your opponent's ballistic skill. You never want to do something like that, because to me it's not as fun. You can do a positive, have the same effect, and not make somebody quite as angry in the process. I think it's lazy the way they're doing things. It could be better if they switched it like that. But it's just my 2 cents. I'm not playing against Deathwatch in their current incarnation because I don't want to happen to bring Necrons to the game or to the game and then be like, oh, I can't reanimate. Why am I here? Even if I win, I won't have a fun win. I don't have fun by winning. I have fun by having fun, and I don't have fun if the thing that makes my army unique is taken away from me. And I don't want to hear, and I know there's going to be some people that say, well, if you think reanimation protocol is the only thing unique to the Necron army, then like you're not paying attention. I don't want to hear that. You're not wrong, but like you're not listening. The point has gone way over your head. You shouldn't take away anything that makes an army unique. Period. Like ever. We all should be unique in our own special ways. It's a whole nother rant. What they did to Black Templar when we were a 4th edition codex, and then they rolled us in with 6. When I heard people speak in defense of it, they're like, well, Black Templar weren't very unique. Well, if we weren't very unique, it's only because Games Workshop wasn't writing us right. You release us in a new codex, you give us a whole bunch of new special rules and upgrades and all that stuff, and you can make us as unique as the Space Wolves or the Blood Angels or whatever. But if I start the Black Templar rat, I'll be there forever. So, thank you for listening. I'm sure I'm mumbling. I'm sure I'm not enunciating my sentences properly at this point. It's almost midnight, but thank you for listening, and this was a lot longer than the story was. See you later.